What's up, UNC, and welcome to You Make the Call, Student Television's one and only sports talk show. Back at you again for our second episode of the spring semester. Hope the semester's off to a solid start for everybody. Spring break is right around the corner, but right now there's plenty to talk about with UNC sports, particularly UNC basketball. Tonight we're going to do something a little bit different than we normally do. We're going to put the focus basically on the team right now, and also it was a big basketball weekend with celebration of a century and the NC State game. And as everybody probably knows, 6 days ago UNC took on Duke. Didn't really get the result they were looking for. So we're going to spend the entire time talking about the basketball team and seeing where we will go from here. But before we do that, I would like to introduce my panelists for the evening. Making his return to the program, it's been a while, Andy Reeves. How's it going, Andy?
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. For once, it was an exciting week in Carolina basketball, and I'm ready to talk about it.
Absolutely. Finally, good to see a win, in the win column, obviously. And to my right, making her return to the show, it's been a really long time.
It's been a
Everybody,
while.
welcome back, Rachel Nash. How's it going, Rachel?
It's going well. Ready to talk about basketball. Glad to see that we actually got a win. 4 games it's been since we beat State, so thanks, State, for being there for us.
Absolutely. State's now been there twice this season. And as our trivia question, we'll get into that later on in the show as far as the question goes about how many times State's been there for us over the past few seasons. But before that, we're going to bring on Priscilla Cabrera. She's here, one of our trivia crew members, and she's going to talk about the rules in case anyone's forgotten, about how they can get some pretty cool prizes.
So before we talk about the trivia question, I wanted to remind you all that you're going to email the answers to youmakethecallunc@gmail.com, and when you do that, email the correct answer. We will give you points towards a prize at the end of the year. Our last prize was a Starbucks gift card, and our next prize will maybe be bigger, better, or maybe just another Starbucks gift card.
It's still a work in progress.
Everybody needs coffee.
I know.
So it's
We're all
just
college
great.
students.
And so make sure to email your answers to youmakethecallunc@gmail.com, and we'll send you a letter notifying you that you received those points, and hopefully at the end of the year you'll get a prize.
All righty. Well, thank you, the lovely Priscilla Cabrera. Always good to see you. And without a doubt. So, guys, let's jump right into it, and let's make the call on a few topics. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, last Wednesday, Tar Heels lose to Duke at home, a game that for 30 minutes looked like they probably were going to win. And then Saturday, they bounce back and defeat NC State. Andy, I'm going to allow you to make the call. What were your thoughts on the week that was Carolina basketball? What did you like? What did you dislike? Just what are your thoughts right now?
Well, overall, I was really pleased. I mean, even in the Duke game, which, we came up a little short, but the defense was there. I mean, for most of the game, we held Duke to under 30% shooting, and
very ugly game.
Oh yeah, it was a terrible game. But over the last 2 games, John Henson has had 7 blocks, which is a testament to how well he's been playing defensively. And also, there's kind of been a resurgence of Marcus Ginyard as an on-the-ball defender. I thought at a lot of times this year he had looked a step or two slow. But really the last couple of games, he's been the lockdown defender we all were hoping he would be at the beginning of the season.
Oh, no, definitely. Without a doubt. Rachel, you make the call. Who are you really impressed with right now, or what's going right with this team right now?
I really think right now we're doing really well with guard play. I think Larry Drew, he struggled for a long time, but he started to step it up. Also,
looked really good on Saturday.
Yeah, very good. I like Dexter Strickland, too. I think he's starting to get more confident in his drive game. And also, like you said, Henson is really stepping up and becoming more assertive. Like, he's not afraid to drive anymore. And also on the defensive end, he's having, block parties left and right. So, been very impressed with the newcomers this year. No,
without a doubt, I'd like to say the same thing. I think, Andy, you hit the nail on the head, and Rachel built on it. John Henson, with the injury to Ed Davis, who we've been seeing on our screen, making plays left and right, the team's certainly going to miss him. But it's going to be really nice to see, and it has been really nice to see John Henson, having the minutes at the 4 position, playing really well, like you said, throwing block parties. He's really raw. You can tell he kind of struggles here and there, but the potential's there, and it's time to grow it. Yeah, I think that's the moment.
He's looking a lot more comfortable out there these days.
I would agree. I don't want to put a damper on the party, but the one thing that really stood out for me in especially the Duke game, and this has popped up a few times in end-of-game situations, were the free throws. The team really struggled. So did Duke, to be fair. But down the stretch, the team really, really struggled from the free throw line. Really, you just saw it brick after brick after brick. Dexter Strickland got there, missed a couple. It just really wasn't there. And one can argue, had you knocked down those free throws,
Right.
you would have been back in the game. However, had Duke hit their free throws, they might have ran away with it. That's up for debate, obviously. But to me, that's the one thing that really stood out for me as a concern. However, I think that, the team really right now, I think, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, the younger guys now have a chance to really step up.
Oh, absolutely. I think, and it was time to make that move, I think, to give the younger players more minutes. I realize that Roy Williams has said in the past that he wants to have their best team on the floor at all times, but I think there came a point this year where we've just lost so many games that it's time for those freshmen to really get their feet wet and get some experience so that we can build on that for next year.
No, most definitely. And before we perhaps look into next year, guys, we'll just switch gears a little bit and look towards the future, which is, looking towards next year, but not just next year, but the rest of this season. Everybody knows how the team's doing right now, where they stand in ACC play currently. It's going to be, it's a nail biter right now. This team's in uncharted territory in terms of how their record is. Rachel, I'll start with you this time. You make the call. How's this team going to do? Are they going to make the NCAA tournament? Or, if you look at their schedule, if they end up putting up a losing record, are they going to make the NIT?
Well, I think it's a conditional game. I think if we were to make the tournament, we're going to have to win 4 more games, and it's going to have to be 2 big wins after this. We're going to have to either beat Wake, Duke, or Georgia Tech. And we're also going to have to go pretty deep in the ACC tournament. So I think it's just going to depend on how we finish it out. NIT, I'd say, yeah, we're going to
at least make the
NIT. But for the tournament, we've got to get 4 more wins at least, go deep in the ACC, and at least have 2 crucial wins.
Okay,
impressive wins.
No, I would agree, and it's certainly that final game of the season. Cameron Indoor Stadium, could they make it 5 in a row? That could be the game that could push them into the NCAA tournament.
That could be our selling point.
Andy, what about you? You make the call. How's this team going to finish?
Well, I completely agree with Rachel. I think NIT is the most probable destination for these guys, considering with the loss of Ed and, all these guys don't really know how to handle this situation. It's just going to be better if they play free and loose and not with the expectation that they're going to try to make the tournament. But they do have a chance. It's a very small chance. But, if they can get this win tonight against Georgia Tech, then, that would really open some doors for them, and they might have a chance of making a really low seed in the tournament. And I think that the committee may help them a little bit because, I think...
Name recognition.
Of the name.
More people will watch the NCAA tournament if North Carolina.
Yes.
No, an example a lot of people like to bring up is Arizona. You've seen Arizona, 2 or 3 times over the last few seasons get in, have around 12 to 13 losses. And if UNC is certainly capable of pulling that off, it's going to, you obviously have to win most of your games that you have left on the schedule. But if somehow you can become, 8-8 in the conference perhaps, and, only have overall 13 or 12 losses, win a couple games in the ACC tournament,
definitely,
that could be enough to get in. But right now, me personally, I don't see that happening. I think this team, there's a couple tough games left. Certainly the game tonight against Georgia Tech, that's a tough one in my opinion. Oh, yeah. You have a game at Wake Forest, a game at Duke. It doesn't really get easier, from here on out. I thought a lot of the easier games were at the beginning of our schedule. Playing Virginia at home, playing Virginia Tech at home. You saw how at least one of those games panned out, not really the way UNC wanted it. However, it's going to be really tough. I'm not going to count on it right now, and I can't believe I'm saying that. I think one thing that really sums it up for me earlier tonight, watching a game on ESPN, you were looking at Virginia Tech's resume, and it showed, good wins, had a couple teams listed. And it had bad losses. And North Carolina was considered one of their bad losses. And for a UNC, that's definitely not the standard that we've become accustomed to over the last couple seasons. Andy, I'll ask you really quickly. You make the call. This shouldn't happen next year, right? If you look at the core, the guys that they have, Ed Davis, if he comes back, the team should do much better next year, right?
I think so. Harrison Barnes is got to be the savior, though. This team is in desperate need of a leader, and somebody's going to have to come in and handle those responsibilities. And, I think it can be him, but he's got to be ready to deal with all the pressure and all the expectations that he's going to be the number 1 option and the leader on this team next year.
Yeah, Rachel?
I totally agree with Andy. What we're missing right now is that all-star key player like Tyler Hansbrough last year or Wayne Ellington or Danny Green. All these players seem to just be role players. We need that one guy that's going to step up and put the team on his shoulders and just be the driving force, the catalyst for us. And I feel like Harrison Barnes could potentially be that.
UNC fans certainly hope so. I mean, but you really see the difference when your team goes from having 4 go-to guys. Sometimes that's a little too problematic because you know who's going to take the shot, and now you don't really have a single go-to guy.
Right.
So, and I think the record speaks for itself. Well, that'll do it for our discussion of this current team, and we'll get into celebration of a century and a special jersey retirement after our guests. So, Rachel, if you wouldn't mind stepping aside momentarily. We have a great guest tonight from the UNC track and field team. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the program Charles Cox. I'll clap for him. Charles, how's it going, man?
It's nice to meet you.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. Glad you could stop by in our humble studio here we have going. Couple of questions just to ask you. You're on the track team, correct?
Yeah.
And what events do you participate in?
I'm a sprinter, so I generally do anything from the 100, 200, and the 400.
Okay, so you have the jets, right? You can really turn it up.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just a couple questions about you. Where are you from?
I'm from New Jersey.
New Jersey, and what brought you to UNC?
UNC is just a great school. Academically, it's known across the country. You know, it's a great sports program, and I know I can succeed in the world with this degree here.
No, absolutely, definitely. Well, that's nice to see that. You know, balancing academics and sports at the same time. That's pretty sweet. Well, we're glad to have you here at UNC down here in the South. Hope you're enjoying your stay. What year are you?
I'm a junior this year.
Junior, awesome. So you still have one more year left to go. Great. How is your season going in particular, and even more generally, how's the team doing this year?
Personally, I'm doing very well. You know, I had a good meet in New York. We're about to have a conference meet in Virginia Tech next week, and it's a big meet. But I'm doing well. The entire team is looking really, really good. We have a chance to be ACC champions this year. We have a whole bunch of guys nationally ranked right now. So I mean, we're ranked top in the nation. I mean, we're getting there top in the nation.
No, definitely. I mean, you go to TarHeelBlue.com, read up on you guys. I mean, it just seems that there's nothing but good things going on for this team right now, which is always great news for UNC fans. We try to get bragging rights in any sport. As far as your training goes, how hard do you guys go? I mean, is it an everyday thing, or explain the off season? What's probably the hardest part?
I gotta say the hardest part is just, I mean, I felt like I win my battles off the track by maintaining a good lifestyle, you know, eating right, you know, getting enough sleep. You know, it's very easy to train because we train for very short periods of time because it's sprints. You know, we don't run long, but you know, taking care of that body is the most important thing to a runner. No,
absolutely, absolutely. Well, if anybody's interested in coming out, when's you guys' next meet? I heard you mention
we have
a conference coming up.
We have a conference meet. That's in Virginia Tech. That's quite a ride away, but we have a whole bunch of invitationals and you know, meets here that are you know, littered throughout the season, so they can definitely come to visit. And it's, you know, you don't have to pay anything; it's for free, and it's a good meet. You have good competition there. You have professionals running too. So
yeah, most definitely, and probably just a lot of different events. So I mean, I got to imagine anyone who's interested in practically anything could definitely be satisfied by coming out.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that'll do it for Charles Cox. Thank you so much for being here, man, and definitely stop by again eventually, and good luck to you on the rest of the season.
All right, thank you.
All righty. Well, we're going to keep the program moving for the time being. Priscilla Cabrera came out and introduced their trivia rules as always, and now rejoining us on the program. She's back, ladies and gentlemen. Cole Murphy is here with a very special trivia question. Cole, how's it going?
It's going well. How's it going for you?
Pretty good. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. What's the question this week?
The question this week is, how many times in a row has our UNC men's basketball team beaten NC State's men's basketball team? This weekend's win would be the what? Number what? So email your answers to youmakethecallunc@gmail.com.
Definitely. Well, it's getting up there. Well, thank you very much, Cole. Appreciate you being here as always. Yeah, Andy, you and I were talking about this before the show started. Ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and email your answers and win a great prize. But the number's kind of ridiculous. It's getting up there.
It's pretty high. I mean, for a game that's supposed to be a rivalry game, there's not a whole lot of competition going on there.
Especially, I mean, and if you take away the game they won in 2007 at the RBC Center, it could get pretty ugly if you really look at this streak right now. I mean, it's pretty impressive. And I mean, me personally, I would like to see NC State improve a little bit and
Make it
bring
a
some-
rivalry.
Exactly, bring some spice back to it.
Sydney kept wearing that red jacket after they beat us, but I think it's worn out its luck.
Yeah, the pimp suit is definitely
Right.
does not have the charm
Sydney maybe get another jacket.
that it once. Yeah, maybe you should try black or something. Maybe red's just not his color.
Red's not your color, man.
Absolutely not. Well, getting back to a program that has experienced success over the past few years and over the past 100 years, so to speak. Sorry, NC State, you guys had some good success. David Thompson was the man.
There was a time when State was better than
There
Carolina.
was a time.
Absolutely. Anyway, and we'll get into that in a minute. But guys, Friday night, I don't know if you had a chance to make it out. Celebration of a
did.
century. Really interesting ceremony. I mean, a few people could argue it perhaps ran on a little too long. But what, as far as the videos go, things they commemorated, it was a really, really good ceremony. Just a good celebration of Carolina basketball. Roy Williams says it's the best, it's the flagship basketball program in the entire country. And, some of the statistics that they just mentioned off were absolutely incredible. And it was really cool to see the old guys, too. Look at that right there. Guys, I'm going to ask you, Andy, you make the call. How special was it to celebrate 100 years of Carolina basketball?
Well, I do think it was special, but I do also think there was a bit of a letdown because of some of the people that weren't there, like Michael Jordan, for instance. I think there was a lot of hype going into this event that he was going to be there and that he was going to possibly play, and so I think his absence really took away from what could have been a really, really almost perfect night for Carolina basketball fans. But it was a good program, and I think maybe some Carolina fans that weren't terribly familiar with the history maybe know a little bit more about our past and how successful we've been over these 100 years. And so I think it was a worthwhile endeavor.
No, I would agree. I mean, and 5 national championships or 6 national championships, however you want to characterize it, just impressive. Okay, we'll go with 6 for the purposes of this show.
I'd say 6.
6.
Rachel, you make the call. What was, I know you were there. What was, trying to think of the word. I don't want to say chilling or heart-wrenching, but to you, what was the most special moment of the whole evening?
I thought
there were a lot to choose from.
Right, and I was really impressed with the ceremony. I mean, the game did go on for a while, but really in particularly, I enjoyed the videos, especially the one commemorating Dean's career. Just to see it up on the big screen in the Dean Dome, to see all that he's accomplished.
And to also see Dean himself.
To see
Dean
Dean
Smith made the appearance
and
at
it
the
just
event.
speaks to what a good guy he is, because when he went out there, he was just telling everybody to sit down, chill out, it's just me. But it's just seeing it up on the big screen, you realize how much he has done for this university and this basketball program.
No, absolutely. I think when you think of all-time great coaches, and I think greatness, it's different somewhat than being a solid or good coach. Greatness is someone who transcends a lot of things or is a pioneer. I think when you think of greats, you think of John Wooden, Dean Smith. I think you have to put Adolph Rupp up there. Somewhere, for as successful as Roy Williams will be, or a Mike Krzyzewski, love him or hate him, I don't think they go into the greatness territory that a Dean Smith does. He laid the groundwork that these current coaches are building on. So I would say that. One of my favorite moments of the whole ceremony, really good to see one of the guys that does have his jersey retired, Phil Ford. He was there, got to run the 4 corners at one point. I thought that was probably the sweetest part of the whole evening. It was just really neat to see him. And when he held up those 4 fingers, the crowd really, really loved it. And he did what he did best back in the 70s. So it was really good to see that. Always nice. Phil Ford, has his jersey retired.
Yep.
Not many Carolina players have that going on. Just building on the celebration of a century, 100 years, Carolina is actually I think it's a couple of years younger than a Duke or a Kentucky. Rachel, I'll start with you on this question. You make the call. Where does Carolina rank in your mind? Is it the greatest basketball program of all time?
Oh, well, I'm really biased about this answer, but I have to say yes. 6 national championships. I don't know how many national players of the year. We've got people like Tyler Hansbrough, Michael Jordan, James Worthy, Antoine Jameson. You just go down the list of accolades and awards and great players, and you think of Carolina. So I'd say definitely number 1.
Wow.
For continued domination also.
Continued domination is a good point. I'm glad you brought that point up. I'll probably get into that in a second. But Andy, there's a lot of competition. UCLA has 11 national championships. Indiana has a bunch. Kentucky has a bunch. In your mind, Andy, you make the call. Where does UNC rank?
I think there's a lot more of a cluster at the top than Rachel does. I think it's a really tough call to make. I might lean towards UNC myself, Just the record in Final Fours, I believe it's 18.
They're ahead of UCLA at this
point. That does say
point.
something. It's hard to put them ahead of UCLA because of those 11 national championships. It's hard to put them in front of Kentucky because Kentucky still has more overall wins than North Carolina.
North Carolina's still looking for that 2,000th win.
Right.
Yeah, I hopefully we'll get there. Hopefully they'll get there this season. It'll be interesting to see, but Kentucky and UCLA certainly have to be in the conversation, and I don't think any one can be a clear-cut number one. They've just all had so much success in so many different areas. If you can't point to one number and pick.
Right.
No,
pick a
yeah,
team.
I would agree. I don't think you can put UNC at the top by itself. But Rachel, that point you did make, I'm glad you made it. If anything, I think what UNC has that these other schools that we've mentioned don't have is a sustained period, or just a sustained continuing dynasty. When you look at UCLA, yes, they have 11 national championships, but 9 or 10 of those came in the 60s and the 70s. That era has been long gone. I think they won one in 92 or 93, and then, they've recently been back to the Final Four. They made it 3 years in a row. But it's not what what they're accustomed to. At Pauley Pavilion, UCLA, it's not. I feel like that dynasty is long gone.
Right.
And I think you can say the same thing with Kentucky. A lot of their championships happened under Adolph Rupp. He's long gone. Whereas you look at UNC, you can argue there's a title in the 20s, but there's a title in the 50s. Not one in the 60s or the 70s, but there's a title in the 80s, there's a title in the 90s, there's 2 in the 2000s, and you might be able to add one in the teens, aughts, whatever you're going to call this decade. But to me, that's what's so impressive. And as you said, just the length of success, all the Final Fours, ACC regular season championships, consecutive years making it to the tournament at one point. It was absolutely incredible. So in my mind, if you're going to argue UNC, there's plenty of just evidence to back your claims. So that debate will still be up in the air for now, and hopefully, who knows, maybe in the next 2 or 3 years we might be able to put UNC at the top. But we don't want to speak too soon. Absolutely not.
If they get that wins record, if they end up leading the Division I in all-time wins, I think the argument is closed.
Yeah.
And if we keep averaging 2 national championships a decade, I think we're on par to be known as number one unanimously.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Certainly a lot to hang your hat on if you are a UNC fan. Guys, we'll go into our last topic for the evening, and got a little bit of time. I'd like to spend some time talking about this. A very special player had his jersey retired officially this past weekend. Number 50, Tyler Hansbrough. His jersey's now hanging in the rafters. No UNC player will ever again wear it. Good for him. It was really really nice to see him back, and everyone knows that the team definitely misses him down in the post. It's almost like you take the points he was going to get for granted now at this point. Quietly.
Especially last year with the emergence of Ty Lawson. I think he was really taken for granted a lot last year, but he had as good a year as he's ever had.
No, absolutely. Andy, I'll start with you. I'm going to ask 2 questions. The first one I'll pose, what will you remember most about Tyler Hansbrough? Is it, you make the call, is it that national championship, or is it more just personal things about him?
Just his consistency. He went out there and gave it his all every night, and he always came away with a great line. He was always, he never disappeared in the big situations. He didn't fear any stage. He's the greatest player in Carolina basketball history in my mind. We absolutely needed him when he came, and a lot was built around him, and everything culminated in that national championship, and he's it for me.
Well, we'll get into that debate in just a minute. That will be my second question. Rachel, I'll ask you. You make the call. What will you remember most about Tyler Hansbrough?
Like Andy said, just his determination. His freshman year, he came in like a beast. He came in and he wasn't going to look back. He would refuse to lose, and he just put that team all 4 years on his shoulders. And every game, you could tell he came out and he knew what he had to do. He knew what the team had to do, and he just refused to lose and refused to do anything less than his best.
Yeah. In my opinion, what I'll remember most about Tyler Hansbrough, obviously you mentioned the determination, you mentioned just his fierceness and how tough he played and how physical he played and the beating he took every night. For me personally, for the time he got to UNC, it really set a tone. For the 2005 team, everybody loves them. They won a national championship. But there was always, it was just an organized chaos that was going on with that team. There was a lot of drama, a lot of history, a lot of baggage. However, when Tyler Hansbrough stepped on campus, he totally just set the tone for the whole program and ushered in an era of confidence. I mean, he went undefeated at Cameron Indoor Stadium, went 6-2 against Duke. I mean, in his second game against Duke at Cameron Indoor Stadium, beat J.J. Redick and Sheldon Williams on senior night. That was just a very special evening. But I mean, for me, it was the most successful class. I mean, Tyler Hansbrough certainly led that class of Danny Green, Bobby Frazier, Mike Copeland, all those guys, Marcus Ginyard, who's still with the team. You know, it was an unheard of amount of success for a program. And I mean, when you talk about the golden years of Carolina basketball, a lot of people are going to want to look back and say, you know, Dean Smith this, Dean Smith that. And it seems sacrilegious not to put Dean Smith in that category. But if you look on paper and you look at the accomplishments, the past 4 or 5 years, you can argue, have been the glory years of Carolina basketball, which I think 20 years from now, we might really start to appreciate that. Andy, we're going to get back to you really quick. So you make the call. As far as where does he rank among all-time UNC greats, you would put him at the top.
I would.
Michael Jordan, James Worthy,
Yep.
Phil Ford.
They're all great players. And you know, I don't want anybody to put me on record as saying that they're not all great. But, I mean, Tyler Hansbrough is the all-time leader in points, the all-time leader in rebounds. He had a National Player of the Year and a National Championship. I mean, by the numbers alone. I mean, forget what he meant to the program, you know, as an individual and a leader. I mean, those numbers have to put him there. I mean, that closes the book.
And a national championship
Yeah.
certainly helps his cause. Rachel, what about you? Is he number one?
I say he is.
Wow.
I mean, Hansborough's the man. He's
I'm in
the
the
golden
minority
boy of Carolina. I mean, and one thing is, Jordan stayed for 3 years, and he really didn't reach his peak here at Carolina. He went on to have success with the Bulls. But I feel like, I mean,
It's almost that after that core of players left after his freshman year,
Yeah.
your Worthies, those kind of guys, Jordan was never really able to carry it on his back. He kind of needed those extra.
right. His junior year was his lowest scoring year, and I mean, senior year was the same for Hansbrough, but just what he did for the program consistently for 4 years, and especially closing it out his senior year with a national championship, I just have to put him at the top.
Absolutely. No, there's only, in my mind, I would put him over Jordan. I mean, they each have national championships, but Tyler Hansbrough certainly has the accolades and the statistics. One player that comes to my mind, though, that can give Tyler Hansbrough a run for his money on paper is Phil Ford.
Yeah, well.
Phil Ford has his jersey retired, just like Tyler Hansbrough does. Tyler Hansbrough broke Phil Ford's scoring record, but here's the key. Phil Ford, not only was he a point guard, Phil Ford only stayed, I mean, you know, eligibility rules back then. Phil Ford only played 3 seasons. And the numbers he was able to put up in 3 years, he mastered the 4 corners, totally ushered in my mind, Dean Smith as a great coach. I mean, he's the one that put Dean Smith on the map as Michelangelo, as a basketball genius. So in my opinion, I'm going to take Phil Ford. You know, I wasn't there to watch him play. I mean, obviously not. I mean, I'm too young for that. But, you know, it's really hard to debate or argue against Phil Ford, in my opinion. However, Phil Ford doesn't have that national championship like Tyler Hansbrough does. So in my opinion, that's where the debate really becomes cluttered. If Phil Ford has a national championship, I put him above Tyler Hansbrough. But that's not the case. Well, good topics, good conversation tonight, everybody. Really chock full of Carolina basketball. So anyway,
Can't get enough.
absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I'd like to thank Andy, Rachel for being here. Also like to thank Charles. Always great to have good guests. We've got a wonderful crew here as well. And put on a pretty solid show tonight, so I am pleased, and I hope you were too. Anyway, have a good night, and we will see you next week right back here on You Make the Call.
Go Heels tonight versus Georgia Tech.